Peace and blessings. This is Mwalim, DaPhunkeeProfessor. So we're in International Women's History Month. So during this month, in episodes, I want to give a shout out to women who I've particularly found inspirational and influential in my own work, that is aside from my mom. One in particular would be the playwright, the late Linda Patton of New African Company, who taught me how to write plays and was my first playwriting teacher and my theater education teacher. And a lot of my career I owe to the work that she did with me. Two other ladies I want to shout out in this episode. One is the late Hazel Scott, an incredible jazz pianist, incredible virtuoso jazz pianist. First person I ever saw was one of her clips to play two pianos at the same time, which of course influenced my approach to playing two keyboards at the same time. Watching her hands was incredible. Another musician, the late Nina Simone, whose vocal and piano style and combined vocal and piano style directly influenced my style as a pianist and singer. And so to Linda Patton, Hazel Scott, Nina Simone, thank you all for your contributions to me and to the rest of the world.
Now, for the teaching profession, many are called, and a lot of them shouldn't have been. Teachers come from various walks of life, the teachers that we have in the school system. Some are dedicated educators who want to see children excel. Some simply took the job because they had a college degree and needed a paycheck, and unfortunately are not quite as motivated to teach. And when you go through the public school system, your children are going to get little bits and pieces of both kinds of teachers. So the thing that you have to be aware of and be consistent with is staying on top of your child's education. Every week, a couple of times a week, just check up on their assignments, check up on their progress, but also look at the curriculum, look at the kinds of things that they're learning, because these are things sometimes that you might want to augment with other information. Facts of social studies might be challenged because the rhetorical narrative is not necessarily what really happened. Include some aspects of your own cultural background into what they're learning about social studies. Do a chronology timeline. While they're learning about the 1800s, if you know what was happening with your family in the 1800s, give them some kind of perspective. Same thing with the 1900s and the present. All during these various times, these are things that somehow had an effect on us. The Civil Rights Movement, World War I, World War II. Tie these pieces together so now it becomes a part of their own history and their own experience. But the key with education is not to completely rely on the school system, but to be an involved and engaged parent, because your child's education is a cooperative venture.
You give me fever like I never ever known. You're such a product of loveliness. I love the groove of your walk, your talk, your dress. You give me fever from miles around. I pick you up in my car on paper town. Just kiss me, baby, and tell me twice that you're the one for me, the way you make me feel. Oh yeah, baby, turn me on.
It really turns me on.
You knock me off of my feet now.
Knock me off my feet.
And lonely days are gone.
Lonely days are gone.
I love the feeling you're giving me. Just hold me, baby, and I'm in ecstasy. Oh, I've been working from 9 to 5 to buy you things that.
So on Wednesday, February 28th, at the Boston Public Library in Copley, the main library, there was a historic gathering. It was a kickoff event for the Massachusetts Hip Hop Archives. And needless to say, the Groovalados were there, and when I say the Groovalados, I'm including the ZYG, who is our resident hip hop artist. And the interesting thing to notice with this gathering of the archives, it was wonderful. It was like a reunion because it was the who's who of the pioneers of hip hop. We're talking people from the 70s, 80s, and 90s who were part of the Boston hip hop scene. Planet Patrol, Acrobatic, people who were affiliated with AMB and Speed of Light and all of those, Bloodskin Land Productions, Vernon Robinson, Lisa Lee, Cindy Diggs, all of the people who have been part of the Boston branch of the hip-hop movement. Now, one of the things that's wonderful about this archive, this proposed archive, is that we're now going to have chronological evidence that's going to support a number of misconceptions about hip-hop and the evolution and development of hip-hop. For example, Washington, D.C., or artists in Washington, D.C. believe that they are the ones who started hip-hop theater, and of course they did this in the 90s. And I realize it's because they were completely unaware of the fact that hip-hop theater as a theatrical form actually started in Boston in the early to mid 1980s as a byproduct of both the Boston Youth Theater as well as New African Company, two theater companies that dealt with young people. Hip-hop theater came as a result of members of a breakdance group in Boston called the Unique Dominoes, namely, or some of the members were people like Wyatt Jackson, Naheem Garcia, Born by Kim. These are the people who I would say are the foundations of hip-hop theater. The first Inner City Energy, for example, was a hip-hop theater production. And that happened in Boston. But, the other thing to think about with the archive and the wonderful thing, several episodes earlier, I talked about the traditions of hip-hop and the importance of the generations in hip-hop coming together. And it was both kind of cool and also a little bit sad to see that the ZYG was the only young and contemporary hip-hop artist in the room. All of these guys who were getting on the mic and claiming that they're hip-hop artists and they're rappers out of Boston, who were between their teens and their 30s, were not there. These were the older cats, basically. And the importance of the archive is not just the people who can contribute to the archive, but the people who can learn from it. This was a wonderful learning opportunity for younger hip-hop artists. This was something that should have been paid attention to. And of course, the opportunity is going to continue because the actual kickoff for the archive is going to be on May 19th, an event called Show 'em What You Got, which is going to be back there at the Copley Library. And of course, the after party is going to be at the Dedham Square Coffee House with the Groovalados on May 19th. And so, little fun things that are going to be happening. But in terms of the Hip Hop Archive and the Massachusetts Hip Hop Archive, I have to say kudos. It's a wonderful thing, and it's wonderful that we're going to be preserving our history, because the documentation of our history, our experiences, and our aesthetic values is what defines and also provides substance for our cultures and our subcultures.
Insanity. Yeah, I'm crazy international. I have a short freedoms and I also make the nationals. I'm always very angry. I should probably have ulcers. My local social setting is worse than having a cold sore. Much of my family are like another make a rap about you. Just a sack of flesh and bones that I don't give a hoot about. Get away from me because my patience slowly running out. Take this as a warning because my next move will be to slap me out. Classmates are idiots and so on to my teachers. I'm trying because I'm agnostic and I don't trust preachers. Separate myself from inactivity. I hate all you preachers. I don't trust most liberals that are wondering about feminists. How can y'all be about a dolly when most y'all are racist? The snowflakes all hate me and once a bit Saturn. They're all open arms because I say Black Lives Matter. When I'm open up, I'm angry and misguided. When he best, the First Amendment is provided. When I'm upset, I'm just supposed to be cool. When he's upset, he goes and she's up school. It's like my fate has already been decided. Has little to do with anything that I did. This isn't paranoia or the latest vanity. Speak of my mind, and I'm lessons instead. No. I can't see the reason we behind the shoulders of the answer. Any of this drama that happened with the narrative. Why can't they just fire and the reasoning escape me? Reward and racism must be how you run your company. I don't like people who want to preach positivity. All the Billy Bill is trying to mask their hypocrisy. Not 78 and 9 activity exists. But 7th grade art teachers also guilty of this. Mr. 7th grade history, don't think I forgot about you. Man, I know exactly what you're trying to do. You get on the right student because they have a B. You said I was doing great and you gave me a C? When I opened up, I was angry and misguided. When he does the First Amendment is provided. When I'm upset, I'm just holding it cool. When he's upset, he goes and shoots up the school. Feels like my fate has already been decided. Has little to do with anything that I did. This is a paranoia overlay into vanity. It's in my mind on obvious insanity. My name is ZYG. Follow me on Twitter, Instagram, and Facebook at the ZYG808, and check out my website, thezyg808.com. Thank you very much. See you later.
Let's give a big hand for the ZYG.